Okay, so welcome to those of us that are joining us, Aman and Risa, and welcome, Selena. I'm Joanna with Wellness Coach, and we will be speaking about building inner strength. So, Selena, go ahead and give us a nice, warm, and beautiful introduction.
No pressure, right? Thanks, Joanna. Welcome, friends. It's such a pleasure to be together again. I really cherish our time together, especially in these times when being together in community and being connected with each other, even from all around the planet through this app, is available to us. So thanks for being here, being part of our community. Let's take a moment to settle in before we dive into our questions and our comments and sharing. So let's close the eyes. And if you're not already seated, I invite you to just sit comfortably. One of the gifts that we can give ourselves in general, and especially in this time, is taking moments of pause. So I invite you to discontinue whatever you're doing, even let the body begin to be still. You can relax the hands and the legs or the thighs if that feels comfortable. Feel the weight of your lower body just beginning to sink down. And then let's consciously deepen the breath. So allow that inhalation to be longer and the exhalation to be even longer than the inhalation. We're really lengthening the breath and slowing it down here. And as you breathe in this way, feel the body beginning to soften. The face, the jaw, the throat, all begin to soften. The shoulders and the chest, the belly melt, relax a little more. With another full conscious breath in and out, unclench the hands, the feet, or anywhere in the body that is really grasping. And then become aware of the space around you. Feel the body connected and supported by the seat beneath you. And as you're ready, slowly open the eyes.
Thank you for that, Selena. That was wonderful. And welcome to those who have just joined us a couple of seconds before Selena started. Welcome. So today we are speaking about building inner strength. So we'd love to hear from you guys, but I'll go ahead and start by asking Selena a question. So we are all familiar with building body strength by going to the gym and eating healthy. But what does building inner strength mean?
Great. Well, one thing I'd love to just remind all of us, because this is an interactive panel and we are here as a community, Joanna, do you want to just remind everyone how they can use the features to interact with us during the panel, please?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Selena. So if you're joining us on the app, you can certainly raise your hand to interact with Selena directly or use the Q&A box or the chat box. And for those of you that are joining us live on YouTube, you can't really participate directly, but you can download our app, Meditate Wellness Coach, by going onto Google Play or to the Apple Store. Thank you, Selena.
Yeah, thank you. Great. So please, this is our time to be together, to express our thoughts on the topic and to share. So please feel free to interact with us. So coming back to this original question, Joanna, you were just comparing bodybuilding and kind of this cultural awareness of creating more physical strength. But how does that differ from building inner strength? For me, inner strength is an experience of building resilience in the mind and the emotions. And what I mean by that is creating awareness, and then some level of mastery, some level of being able to engage with the mind and with the emotions from this place of choice, conscious choice. So, as opposed to having these thoughts all day long and feeling totally overrun by them, my thought thinks about something I don't have, I start to feel sad. That I have a thought about how something isn't working, I feel really upset. Then I have another thought that says to think about something I'm happy, and all of a sudden I'm happy. And then I think about something that isn't the way I think it should be, and I get really angry. Rather than following the mind and thinking about everything that the mind wants me to think about, I begin to be a conscious thinker. I become aware of what is happening in the mind and realize that I have a choice whether or not to follow that thought. Meaning, let's say that this thought arises that says, I wish I had more money, right? I have this thought, I wish I had more money. What will often happen is I will think more about that. I'll think about all of the things I don't have and how much better my life would be if I had more money. My mind will create this whole inner dialogue or monologue about this one thought, right? When I start to build inner resilience with my mind, I become aware of that thought, I wish I had more money. And then if I so choose, I can disengage from it. Rather than going along that path that I just described, I can consciously maybe think about something I'm grateful for. I can consciously think about what I do have, what is going well in my life. Or I can start to put my attention on how I can create more money, right? It's not just about positive vibes only and pretending that there aren't certain things we want to create, right? It's also about consciously coming into action. So resilience, awareness with the thoughts, how I'm engaging with the mind, and then of course with the emotions as well. I could go into another long description, but I think you probably have a sense. As an emotional experience arises, I can follow that emotional experience and all of the thoughts and reasons why I think I feel that way. I can get very reactive. I can feel like I have to do something about it. And maybe I send that angry email or I tell somebody how they hurt my feelings and they are an awful person. I react from a place of emotion. Rather than doing that, I can become aware of the emotional experience that I'm having. And I can start to learn to be with my emotions in a healthy way. So I'll pause there and we'll probably come back to that a little later.
Okay, that's wonderful. So we do have a few comments and a question that have come in. So Risa says, inner strength is so important right now. I couldn't agree with that more. And she also says, I know a few people who are losing it right now, and they do yoga, meditation, cycling, and walking, I guess, to gain it back.
Yeah, we have so many very accessible tools that we can use, even if we are trapped in a bedroom. Yes, we have these different practices, and we'll probably get into that a little later.
Now, we also have a question from an anonymous attendee that says, does inner strength come with building self-love?
Oh, I love that. I would say yes. I would say there's definitely a correlation. If I doubt myself, yes, let's say that I have this belief that I'm just not good enough. If I have that belief over and over again, those thoughts about that belief, right? Oh, I'm not good enough. This will never work the way I want it to. I'll never be able to do that. Do you think I'm building myself up to feel stronger and more resilient and more capable in my life? Or am I making myself feel less capable and ultimately have a sense of being powerless? It's the latter, right? If I'm thinking self-destructive or unkind thoughts, I'm not building myself up. I'm not building this inner strength. I'm depleting myself from feeling this way. So, most definitely, when we engage kindness and compassion with ourselves, when we take time to acknowledge ourselves for our achievements and successes, even if they're very small. For example, in this time, many of us are kind of, taking a 180 turn here. We're turned upside down with our schedules, with what we're used to in our lives. So maybe you just acknowledge yourself for getting out of bed before 10 o'clock in the morning. Or maybe you acknowledge yourself for making yourself a healthy meal. Or maybe you acknowledge yourself for taking a shower in the midst of taking care of your children and cooking food and whatever else is that you're doing. Yes. So even just having small acknowledgments. And of course, our worthiness and our deserving of love and kindness has nothing to do with our accomplishments. We are all deserving of love and kindness, not because we were raised well, or because we have a family with money, or because we don't have a family with money, or because of our caste, nothing. We are worthy of love and deserving because we breathe, because we were born, period. That's it. Each and every one. It's great. Thank you.
And I couldn't agree more. Everyone in the world does deserve love. We have a comment from Julie. She says, best question I've heard all day. Thinking of how self-love and inner strength are intertwined warms my heart. Beautiful, Julie. Thank you.
So true.
Okay, now switching gears a little bit. What happens when you can't find inner strength? When you're just completely depleted of finding it on your own? Do you have any recommendations on where to begin?
Yes, most definitely. Sometimes if I'm feeling heavy, or if I kind of feel depressed and I feel like I can't access that level of joy or inspiration, or just feeling that strength inside, I turn to motivational talks, books, things that uplift me and take me out of whatever inner dialogue I'm having. Because I think that, and this kind of comes back to the question we were just speaking to, oftentimes, if we are not feeling a sense of inner strength, we will be able to find that little insidious voice that's inside telling us that we didn't do something right, or that something should be different, or things just don't go the way we want them to. Whatever it is, there's that little voice that is kind of keeping us down, right? So I completely just forgot what I was speaking to. What were we just speaking to? That's so funny. What was the question you just asked, Joanna?
The question was, what are the recommendations when you can't find building of your own inner strength?
And for those of you that have practiced with me, you see I do this sometimes. I think I even did it yesterday, where I just forget my train of thought. This is also just an example of being kind with ourselves. Here I am in this platform where I'm professional and I need to have the right answers. Yes, but I'm still just human. I forget things. I don't have all of the answers. So being able to laugh with ourselves and be kind, these are also ways that we can build this inner strength. So for me, I love listening to motivational talks, because it takes me out of that way of thinking that has me in this collapsed feeling inside. And maybe I'm not very aware of this thinking that's causing me to feel upset or sad or depressed. It's feeling more just like a physiological response, a visceral experience that I'm having. Just turning my attention to something that uplifts me or inspires me helps me feel that lift in my entire physiology. So I listen to anything, talks that help me feel empowered. Everything from my teacher Saima to Tony Robbins to, there's so many wonderful teachers in the world that have really great things to say that remind us that we are not trapped by our external experiences. that remind us that it's okay to feel, that remind us that part of the human experience is going through these different feelings and thoughts, but we can come back to consciously choosing what we're creating. Feel the feelings, become aware of the thoughts, come back. Go over here, get lost over there, come back. So that's one of the main things that I do. And of course, as many of you know, I'm a big mover and shaker. So dancing is a great way that also helps to shift what's happening in my brain. So dance, movement, maybe even just being in nature. There are so many great ways that we can start to shift and uplift ourselves when we're not feeling that inner strength.
I couldn't agree with you more. Dancing is my thing too. All right, so we actually have 3 questions that have come in, which is very exciting. So the first one from an anonymous attendee is, how do you build inner strength to deal with outside forces that antagonize you, often intentionally, but not always?
Very good. Thank you. So all the things that I've been speaking to, motivational speaking, things that remind us about the innate power that we have, they can be very helpful. But don't we oftentimes have visceral reactions to experiences? There's this reactivity that comes up if something doesn't feel good in our environment. If I have someone who's antagonizing me, I might have this idea of being very spiritual and grounded and balanced, but when they say something to me that upsets me, I just all of a sudden I feel upset, I feel off kilter, out of balance, right? So one of the things that helps me the most in those situations where I can feel most reactive is compassion. Whew. And I usually have to start someplace else. I usually need to start with this technique that many of you hear me speak of often, that we call feel the feelings, drop the story. Meaning in that moment that I feel triggered, that I feel upset by something that's happening, whether it's a something or a someone who said something or done something, when I feel that arise, I take a moment to feel what's happening inside. And at first, I'm going to notice my mind is going to be giving me a whole drama story, right? Oh, I can't believe they did that. They're so mean. They're so this. And I just, it's not fair and I don't deserve it, right? The whole dialogue, the whole experience is happening, the monologue. Yes. So as that starts to subside, I go into my body and I feel the emotion that it's arising. I notice that tightness in my throat because maybe I didn't say what I wanted to say. So there's this tension here, tears or whatever might be there. I just notice this tightness in my belly or my shoulders are really contracted. I become aware of what's happening in my body and then I just feel the emotion inside. And I give myself permission to feel it. And all of those thoughts and all of those stories about what happened and what they did to me, I just let them start to fade. I feel my body, I cry, I scream, whatever I need to do. The thoughts come back in, I let them fade, I come back to my body. Over and over, I come back again to the feeling and set all of the stories to the side. And then once I've kind of become more connected to myself, more aware of myself, then I move into this experience of compassion. Because for someone to be antagonizing me, something is going on for them. This is not human nature. Human nature is not to be this way. So when someone is rude, when someone is mean to us, when somebody doesn't treat us well, there is some level of suffering inside of that human being. Maybe they feel really scared of something, or they feel really angry that somebody did something to them, and they're taking that out on us. I could go down the list, right? There are so many reasons why a human being can feel upset, and then we can be on the other end of that. So I take a moment to recenter in myself by allowing myself to feel, by setting aside all of the stories, all of the drama that the mind conjures up, and then I have compassion. So that, we could speak on this for some time, but that for me is one of my go-to ways of being able to navigate those more uncomfortable and what seem painful situations.
Yes, and I couldn't agree more. Compassion is so important, especially when you don't know what somebody else you're speaking to is going through. Okay, so now moving on to from another anonymous attendee, how do I consciously choose to keep my focus on one thing for a long period of time?
Hmm. Well, just stop thinking about everything else, right? I mean, just stop it. Just I would say it's choice. It's the choice to come back to that thought over and 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 over again. Studies, statistics say that to master something, we have to spend 10,000 hours doing it, right? To really master it, to be, a masterful pianist or athlete or whatever it might be, right? 10,000 hours. So you think about how many hours we've lived. Don't worry about the math. Just realize we've lived many hours in this body so far. And we have certain thoughts that we have thought over and over and over again. And some of them are our deeper beliefs that we developed as children that aren't even necessarily true, but they have us function as if they're true in the world. For example, let's say that I have a belief that nothing ever goes my way, right? Nothing good ever happens to me. I have thought that thought or a variation of that thought so many times, I've mastered it. And what does that mastery mean? It means that that pathway in my brain, I can walk it without even thinking about it. My brain can go to that thought about nothing ever good happens for me without any reason. Yes. So if I have mastered these other thoughts, that means my brain is naturally going to move toward them. My mind is going to move toward them. So to choose a new thought or a new practice or a new anything that we're focusing on, a new hobby, a new skill, it takes that time to focus on it over and over and over again. And know that your mind is going to wander. Know that you're going to be distracted. It's okay. It's part of the experience. Just continue to come back to that. And you can use practical tools. For example, setting alarms on your phone. I mean, I don't know if you're speaking to a way of thinking or if you're speaking to a project that you're working on, maybe working from home when there's a lot of distraction. There are many different techniques that we could use depending on what you're speaking to. But you can even have reminders in your environment to come back to that. Again, an alarm on your phone, a post-it note someplace, writing it down on paper so you're seeing this reminder in your environment. You can do things like this also. Great question. Thank you.
That was a really great question. And it kind of really segues into the next question that we have from another anonymous attendee. So, due to the pandemic going on around the world, we are bound to be isolated for many different reasons. So, how can I, as an individual, learn to self love?
Great. Well, it's interesting. I don't imagine, well, I'm not sure that you were implying this at all, but what I hear inside of this question, I think is a really important awareness. And it's that for many of us, our experience of self love is dependent on how others are with us. It is easier for me to love myself if I'm acknowledged at work for my achievements. It's easier for me to love myself if I feel very attractive and people are clearly attracted to me or maybe complimenting me on my beauty. It's easy for me to love myself when the outside world is reflecting back to me that I'm lovable, right? This is the way many human beings live. So when we come into this period of isolation in a very new way for most of us, it is really showing us that self-love has nothing to do with how others think of us. And this is the way most of us live. We live as if our worth and our lovability is dependent on other people's ideas or beliefs or opinions of us. So I have a couple little techniques I'll throw in. And I invite you to explore more options also. I'm sure you can just Google practices for self-love because there's so many great ways that we can start to be this way with ourselves. One practice that I really love and I often share with clients, and it might sound hokey, but there's actually a great value behind this. Stand in front of the mirror. And you can do this once a day, 10 times a day. I recommend doing it first thing in the morning when you wake up. Go into the bathroom, close the door, maybe lock it if you have all of the family coming in to join you. Look at yourself in the mirror. And really, rather than just looking at yourself and judging your physical appearance, look into your eyes and acknowledge 3 things about yourself that you love or appreciate about you. And it might feel very uncomfortable. It might feel very, very uncomfortable to make eye contact with yourself, let alone acknowledge yourself. But I promise you, if you take the time to do this, it starts to nourish something in the heart. Because we have a lot of beliefs also about what it means to love ourselves. There are even a lot of beliefs that say it's selfish or arrogant to love ourselves. So we could really go on and on about that. But take a moment, at least once a day, look at your eyes in the mirror and just acknowledge at least 3 things about yourself that you love or appreciate about you. And you can even choose an affirmation. This affirmations have served me so greatly over the last couple of decades. Choose a statement that really speaks to this self-love. Write it down on a piece of paper or 10 pieces of paper. Put them around your space so that you're reminded of them. And just start to say this to yourself all day long, whatever it is. Maybe it's the mantra that says, I am lovable, or I am beautiful, or I am awesome. Whatever it is, I am deserving of all good things. Whatever it is, and I invite you to use the words, I am. For whatever we say after I am comes into manifestation. We begin to create it. So I am, and then choose your loving statement. And the last thing I'll say on this affirmation creation segue is I invite you to speak it as if it is already so. Sometimes we say things like, I am not mean to myself anymore. Let's take away any sense of negation, right? Because if I say I'm not mean to myself, what am I focusing on? I'm focusing on how I've been mean to myself, right? So shift that to what it is that you'd rather be having. I am so kind and loving with myself. I am joyful. You get the idea, yeah? So that's what I'd say. Thanks so much for asking.
That was awesome and beautiful. We have one more question from another anonymous attendee. Does forgiving someone who did something wrong to you a kind of inner strength?
Oh, I would say yes. It is almost time for us to close here. And forgiveness is one of the richest, most powerful topics we could discuss. So we could speak a long time on it. But the short answer is most definitely. You've probably heard different quotes that say things such as holding on to unforgiveness or resentment and being unforgiving is like uh, thinking that you're giving somebody else poison and drinking it yourself. It's basically like holding on to poison inside of our own self. When we don't forgive, we hold on to that resentment, that contraction. It depletes us. Even the immune system is impacted if we hold on to unforgiveness and grudges. Our physiological response, it also impacts us. So most definitely, when we use our tools, when we find support to be able to forgive, it frees up that space inside that was once contracted and dense and hard, or however it is that you experience it, right? Whatever experience it is for you in your body, it frees up that space where more is available to us, where you can start to plant those seeds of loving kindness with yourself. And also where you realize that even though painful experiences happen, they don't have to define who we are. And even though painful experiences happen, it doesn't mean that we don't necessarily learn from them. I mean, I know this sounds very cliche, but I can say it. that the different traumatic experiences I've had in my life with other human beings have molded me into the person that I am today. It doesn't mean you have to experience trauma to be loving and kind. I've also had amazing teachers that helped me learn to forgive and move deeper into the heart. But all of our experiences are an opportunity for whatever it might be, greater awareness, greater compassion. And I'm not saying that you should or that you have to forgive, but I definitely believe that when we do forgive, we learn about that inner resilience. We learn about what true strength is. Strength is not about muscle and brawn and being able to push somebody over or punch somebody out. I would say real strength is about love and kindness and the ability to be flexible with what is happening in our environment and always be able to find center again.
That was so beautiful, Selena. And now to close this out, some words or a little quick meditation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joanna. Thanks, everyone. So many great questions and comments today. It's so wonderful to be with you. Let's close the eyes and just take a really deep, full breath in. Exhale through the mouth. One more breath like this. And bring the awareness to the heart. Feel the jaw relax as you breathe consciously into the heart center. And then I invite you to speak something kind or loving to yourself right now. Maybe it says, I love you. Or maybe the mind says, I love your heart. I love your sense of humor. Thank you for waking up today and making breakfast. Whatever it is, just think a kind thought that appreciates you, that loves you. And then I invite you to find one or two more different thoughts of appreciation and love that you can offer yourself. And if it feels right, maybe even place the palms over the heart center. And take another deep conscious breath here. And as you're ready, slowly open the eyes. Be aware of your hands on your heart, and maybe just these thoughts that you've offered yourself in this moment. And know that you can always come back to this practice, especially if you are feeling insecure or you don't feel like you have that strength that you're longing for, that courage. Speaking in this way, being in this way with yourself is a sure way to start to anchor and enliven that inner strength of who you already are. Don't worry, it's not something that is outside of you that you're taking. It's already inside. I love you. Thank you for being here. Enjoy. Be loved. Namaste.